Sanjeev, first question for you. What is smart manufacturing? And what would you say is the smart manufacturing mindset?
First, I want to say thank you, Chris, for having me on your podcast. Always love to do these type of things. I think when you think about smart manufacturing, right, you think about the connected factory, the amounts of data that's being produced, right? You have existing data sets that are in, maybe silos, different locations. You're starting to get new types of data available, right, with IoT, for those not familiar in the podcast, Internet of Things devices, you have connected workers, et cetera. And really what smart manufacturing is, how do you take all that information, collate it together to derive new insights of things that you may not have been able to do before. But really, smart manufacturing is not just about to take all that data together for the sake of doing it. You really are looking at how do you solve business challenges that you're facing today with new methods and techniques that you may not have been able to do previously. And so when you think about the mindset, for me personally, right, I'm very grounded on business objectives and use cases, like what are you trying to do? So when you think about smart manufacturing, use cases could be like asset availability and predictive maintenance, which is near and dear to my heart. I focus a lot on my career on that. It could be improving product yield and quality. A new one that we're seeing in the last few years is energy optimization, right? Trying to do the same using less energy. And so regarding the mindset, right? When you have this you're grounded with your objectives, you want to think big, right? You want to know what your final goal is, but then you're going to want to start small because you can't start investing $100 million, go all out from the beginning. So start small, show some success, or use that and like a momentum that you get from that success to continue to build more and more. And to expand on that too, like when you think about starting small, where you already have existing data sets and information that you may be able to take advantage of, okay, you might want to start introducing some new things, like either new tools, workflows, right, technology. So I'm part of SAS and we focus a lot on analytics and machine learning. So how we can use that to unlock value, and then to show that success, right? To show value in that incremental process. And then when you think about like mindsets, right? When you think about change, people think about people, process, and technology. So we talk about process and technology, but the people aspect is very important because the mindset is that it's not just one organization that's going to do this and it's going to be widely used. It's that you want everybody to be partaking in that process. And the goal is that you're not trying to lose jobs or anything like that. Is like, how do you make people more effective, right, to be able to tackle on these new challenges? And I think in the last few years too, part of that mindset is it's really be agile and flexible, okay, because we see so much things are being changed, new technologies being introduced. If you try to make a roadmap for the next 10 years, right, you're gonna be completely changing that all the time. So I think the key thing there is just understanding like it's an evolving landscape, right? You want to do things, but you also need to show success and then build on that momentum.
So a number of helpful things that I took away from that answer. One of the first ones I'll highlight is I liked how you suggested to not only start small, right, and look for some of those immediate wins. Mm-hmm. I like how you mentioned the need to, hey, look where some of your existing data sources are. You don't necessarily need to create a bunch of new data. You might have some of that in your facility already that you're not already using.
That's right.
The other thing I want to go into a bit more is you talked about use cases. You gave some good examples there. And I want to ask you, in your current role, when did you first start encountering an organization applying the idea of smart manufacturing?
Sure, absolutely. For those on the podcast listening, if you're not familiar, I'm with SAS. I'm a principal industry consultant within our Internet of Things division. And so I have the opportunity to engage with customers and organizations across multiple verticals, including manufacturing, right? And how to leverage analytics to uncover value. And so one of the first encounters I have with smart manufacturing is one of our customers, Georgia Pacific. Okay. And so I was fortunate to engage with them early on, showcase SAS technology and how they can use that to, what their focus was deploy streaming analytics to be able to identify potential issues of their asset health, of their process, working and so forth, and then just be able to showcase that. And the reason, I bring that example up because it was so impressive was, we show them how to do it right, we gave them examples and so forth, but they saw the power of what they can do on their own, right? Because they had long times to deploy and get their analytics out, how they can use SAS technology to do so, how fast they can, iterate through. It was a team sport. We were working both with the data scientists and the remote operations engineers. And once we gave them the templates, they just went off running, deploying, hundreds of models, experimenting and so forth, which is great for me because, when you think about these use cases, you're not going to be 100% correct on day one, right? But you got to be a little fearless. You got to try things out. May not be great, but then how do you iterate and learn on those experiences? And so where GP is today, when you see their success, right? They're able to use SAS analytics for IoT. They have over 16,000 models running in their production system. They have increased their OEE by 10% and reduced their unplanned downtime by 30%.
I love that. I love a good specific example. Georgia Pacific's very well known. Now let's go a step further. What's something that you learned from this particular experience that's helping you in your current role now as you do more of this?
I think the thing I appreciate more now, especially working with Georgia Pacific and other organizations, is that manufacturers are in different journeys in their process, right? It's not a one size fits all, like you have to do this approach, right? Because you may have certain team structures, organizations, skill sets, you may have certain data, you may not, you may have different business objectives. And so when you think about how would you approach implementing some of these technologies, with our focus of analytics, you may want to try to do everything in-house, build everything up from the ground, which is perfectly fine, but it may take you longer to get there. Larger organizations may do that. If you're a middle manufacturer, middle size, you may want to partner, right, to help you accelerate your journey to get there, right, to help augment your staff. Or some might, small middle manufacturers might look for an application or software as a solution to be able to implement these things and so that they can take advantage of the outcomes, right, with minimal investment without maintaining it. And I think the thing I appreciate more is that people are in different stages, right, and different needs. And it's important, especially as us as a vendor for analytics, is to understand where organizations are, what will resonate with them, and try to meet their objectives. Not just saying, hey, this is the blueprint, like GP did it this way, everybody must do it that way. I think that's the power of just, working with such organizations and hearing their appreciation of where they are.
Well, let's reflect on this experience one more time, because you've had a good amount of background in this industry. So how did you leverage your previous experience in this effort as well?
Absolutely. So I mentioned predictive maintenance is near and dear to my heart. So before, I've been with SAS for 5 years. Prior to that, I was with General Electric in their power division, where I was part of the analytics team responsible for developing analytics to provide predictive maintenance capabilities for their heavy-duty power generation equipment. So you think of gas turbines, steam turbines, generators, the importance of those, if those assets go down, right, the amount of power that's lost, can you replace that? How sensitive that could be to the grid operations. And the thing that made me appreciate, I was doing that for 10 plus years, and the thing that stuck out to me was, we can develop the analytics, I can make the best thing, in the world, but if it doesn't follow an end-to-end process, there's got to be devices to collect the data, that we've got to prepare it, we need, the IT folks, the OT folks, we need to be able to create the analytics to run and be able to provide that value in real time, but then also how is it consumed and how is that value being generated to alert power operators, hey, you have a potential issue, here's our recommendations. Just seeing that full end-to-end value chain, right, is a really important piece that people shouldn't dismiss, right? It is a team sport, and you're just trying to fit in, because even some of the analytics, I know working with some organization, they might say, hey, I have the best analytics, R square is 1, which I'm sure a lot of people say that's not possible. But it's really about how do you drive the right outcomes and values to show that. And I think that's what got institutionalized with me from my GE experience, and I bring to my customers at SAS.
Well, let's stick with your experience and your background in predictive maintenance a bit more. Why is predictive maintenance, in your perspective, an essential piece of smart manufacturing?
Absolutely. I mean, at its core, right, if you're a manufacturer, your goal is to produce products at, as fast as you can, to meet demands and so forth, to maximize your investment in these, capital assets that are producing these. So at its core, right, predictive maintenance, you're trying to keep these assets up and running, right, minimizing downtime, making sure that it's producing what it needs to be producing. But then the second piece, the part that gets me excited is like that next level around optimizing. How do you handle those maintenance activities? So even if something is going to be down and so forth, you have to mobilize resources, you might have to mobilize people, you might have to procure parts, you might have to get other things like cranes, depending on how big where you're trying to fix and so forth. Mm-hmm. And that becomes a much bigger challenge, because then if you're mobilizing all these things, if you're already fixing component A, you might have to fix component B and C at the same time, but your overall objective is to minimize your downtime. So looking at it from a bigger picture, right? Like to kind of look at it from a manufacturing floor. And then the third is, we think about availability. I want to make sure this asset's up, but you also want to maximize this performance. You're getting the most out of it, because some of these devices might be 10, 20 years old, right? They might be running on different vintages and so forth. So you just really want to understand how are you getting the most out of those items, or do you need to start planning to get new assets to be able to create the same product and so forth. And so to me, it's exciting because there's a lot of things that you can do there to unlock, but it's also the type of data that you're collecting. It's so foundational to help in other areas. So it's really just like it's a great way to solve a puzzle and try to figure out what's the best way to maximize your throughput and your capabilities.
I like that even though there's a lot of detail in smart manufacturing and predictive maintenance, you're focusing on the big picture, looking at asset health. Do I need to replace the asset? Looking at the overall operation. My last question is, looking ahead, how will advanced analytics power the next generation of smart manufacturing?
So I think at its core, right, analytics are going to help like the end users, manufacturing organizations to continue to derive new insights, right, uncover hidden relationships within the data, right, that you may not be fully aware of, to help with decisioning, right? You think about, things are happening, but how do I make the right decision? Either do I update step points on my manufacturing process? Do I bring in my downtime, my maintenance windows, et cetera? So like, how do I bring all those pieces together? Again, to augment the workforce. It's not to make those decisions automatically, potentially, but like, how do you aid them in trying to figure out what's to be done? And then just optimize a variety of processes within the manufacturing floor. I think the cool thing is bringing back on my message about the mindset about being agile and flexible, right? You think about like the new technologies coming out, like with generative AI, ChatGPT, large language models and so forth. They show a lot of promise, right? And there's like a lot of people are thinking about how can I take advantage of that, digital twins being another aspect of it. And so at SAS, we are excited for these technologies, right? Because we think they can unlock a lot of value. But you also have to be a little hesitant too, right? You got to make sure that the models or the analytics that you're creating, when we think about it at SAS, is that do they have the right performance? Do they have the right productivity? Can I generate those type of analytics? But the third piece, do I trust the outputs that are being generated? Okay. So you think about the error proneness and everything. And again, nothing's going to be perfect day one, but I think having that caution, right, to know, like, understand what you're going to get, make sure you get the adoption and so forth and the feedback, that just helps you iterate and be able to execute and be able to mature across the whole organization. Again, not just a subset of the manufacturing workforce.
Yes, I like, I like the focus on the whole workforce rather than just individual bits and pieces of it. Sanjeev, I really appreciate you taking us through all this today. Thanks so much for jumping on Manufacturing Happy Hour.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers. Cheers.